Hi, I'm Lori.
And I'm Kevin, and this is No Longer Ashamed.
We are survivors of childhood sexual abuse.
And we're here to share with you that if you're a survivor, you don't have to be alone.
Our logo is a salamander, and the reason is a fire salamander can survive a fire, and you have survived a fire.
We want to help you with your journey to healing and hope.
We are all survivors together, and we walk this journey together, and you are not alone.
By telling our stories, we are hoping that you will have the courage to share your stories as well and find your voice.
Because stories are so important, and for so long I know that I wouldn't tell my story, but when I finally shared my story, that's when I got my freedom.
And this is our journey and your journey to healing and hope. So come with us.
There's this thing I've been following. It's called belief coding. And I've been really interested in it. And it's one of those things where, you keep seeing it. And if you click on it, you see more. And it feels like coaching mixed with trauma. It's not counseling, it's coaching. Mm-hmm. And so I decided I was going to put the money in and take the little course and see what it was about. And it was really interesting because they have put together a lot of the things that I actually do in my coaching, mm-hmm. but they've made it into a system. And I feel like it's really great. But essentially, I'm not pushing that thing, but people do EMDR, they do tapping. There's something will work for somebody.
Yeah.
But the thing that really drew me to this was, so I've been, really trying to be retired and work from home and mm-hmm. make money teaching podcasting. And I am doing all the things. I'm making things happen, but not as quick. And I kind of feel like I'm doing all the things and I'm not getting the results. And when I saw this woman who does the belief coding, she said, I kept doing all the things. And we run in similar circles of mastermind groups. And she goes, and I kept doing all the things, but I wasn't getting the same results that the other people in the mastermind were getting. And what she realized was, because she was trying to promote her belief coding, was that she actually had a belief about something. And so we know we do the self-talk. What do we always say? Your mind can change your brain. Mm-hmm. But also, what have we said? The body keeps the score. That's a wonderful book. But when you think about it, those are two very different things. Yeah. And often with clients, I'll have a client they'll say, I am just so off. I don't even know what's going on. And I'll say, okay, like say it's October. It's October. Did something happen in October? Well, that's when my mom died. Like their body is remembering, but their brain has not caught up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what I recognized was I was holding on to some core beliefs from my childhood, not even necessarily about abuse, like about money. Money doesn't grow on trees, or just all the things that we learn as kids and we take personal because we're a kid. Yeah. We take it on, and then put on top of that, some of the stresses I had as a child with different aspects of mental illness and other things going on. And so I recognized that I was holding something in my body, but I didn't know what it was. And so when I took this course, I sat in on it every day, and it's really basic. It's stuff that we do in coaching where you just get quiet and you ask yourself, what are you holding on to? And these kind of things. Well, in the meantime, my grandson was coming for the weekend and I was so excited to see him. He loves his grandma Lala so much, but I was sick and he has a baby sister and I can't, in this day and age, you just don't go when you have a cold.
Yeah.
I mean, you never should if you're really sick, and you can hear my,
Yeah.
And so I was really sad, and I was working. I was house sitting for my sister. I had to do a lot of watering, but I wanted to see my grandson. But I sat and I went through this process, really trying to pay attention to what I was holding on to, what the fear of making money, doing what I want to do. And what I realized is the whole time I was growing up, and then in both marriages, every time I made money, because I'm an entrepreneur, every time I made money, the person over me, whether it be a parent or a husband, took it.
Oh.
Used it. It never got to be for any of my purposes. And so as a kid, my sister and I would pick berries, and we were good. We were some of the fastest pickers. And then our mom took our paycheck. We got to keep a little bit out for school clothes. And so I didn't realize my body was holding that. And my body is going, danger, danger. If you make money, someone's going to just take it away. Better you self-sabotage than lose it to somebody.
Yeah. Waste all that hard work.
Yeah, and so in the meantime, I had been sick, but I had not been able to be sick for years because of I didn't have anyone to fill for me in my job. If I was
Oh,
sick and there was no one to fill, I had to go in. It's not a job that nobody can show up. And so I let myself be sick. I mean, I did take all my supplements, but I wasn't like, you can't be sick. I just let myself be sick. I let my body rest. I told myself, I am going to take care of you. You're going to be all right. And then I did this thing they had us do, which is a self hug. And I just said, you're safe. You're
mm,
okay. It's okay to be sick and it's okay to make money because nobody's going to take it away from you. You get to
mm,
choose if you want to give it away, how you want to use your money. And I can't explain, like, I didn't all of a sudden get a lineup of clients. But something shifted in me, and there was something physical about doing the self hug and about really putting that with the self talk of because we've often talked about self loathing. Oh, now you're sick. Now you're sick, and you can't do this, and no one's going to believe you're sick, or just the crazy self talk. And so it was so crazy to put it all together, and then to be sick and I was sick for a long time. I was sick all
mm,
week with just a cold. It feels ridiculous, but I think my body just needed to find a way to trust me. Are you really going to take care of me? Are
mm,
you going to buy the groceries that I need? Are you going to go to the doctor if you need, are you going to pay attention? Because I wasn't paying attention to myself,
mm.
paying attention to everyone around me.
Yeah, you were too busy taking care of everything else.
Hmm. And
Huh.
that's self-imposed. Nobody in my family has asked me, will you come take care of me? And when I house sit, I get paid. I'm not doing it out of the goodness of my heart, which I would. So, it's self-imposed. And these regulations I've put on myself are self-imposed. And so I've had to be really careful and gentle and kind with myself, and which I have been doing mentally and with self-talk, but I have not been doing physically.
Wow. I recognize in myself that realization I had recently of my fear of social media. And it hasn't gone away necessarily, but my recognition of it has helped me to a degree, but there hasn't been that step taken to overcome that fear of social media. I still have it. I still panic when I get a text or a phone call, or I still ignore way too long. I still struggle with that. And I think that is a body memory thing from growing up and from I always felt like I didn't function well socially. And I always felt like that I labeled myself as painfully shy most of my life.
Mm.
And I think that was a label I put on myself so I could ignore being sociable, so I can block it out, so I can had an excuse not to be sociable. And I haven't overcome that yet.
But
And
here's the thing, you've recognized it
hmm
and also recognizing that it's a mind thing. I told
hmm
myself I was painfully shy, so you will have to undo that. I'm not painfully shy. I was just avoiding. But also, if you're like me, like for me, I'm worried about getting in trouble. For you, it's so that social awkwardness. I would physically get sick. Like I'd see an email from someone like in authority and I'd be like, I'm in trouble. I'd get physically sick.
hmm
And so that's the physical part of it where your
yeah,
body's reacting to something, even though it's not true. It's not even
yeah.
a truth.
No, I would just panic basically when I get texts or emails or, and I feel like I have to respond. My first response is panic.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have to figure out how to overcome that panic and address it. And most of the time I just stall.
Mm-hmm. So what have you decided you could do to overcome that? What's your technique?
To recognize that I can respond and I'm not, I used to feel this social awkwardness and I'm not necessarily socially awkward. I just felt that way.
Mm-hmm.
So my response is, I can do this. I'm okay. I'm not going to mess up necessarily.
Mm. So it's kind of a process, a realization, and then
Hmm
okay, now I realize it. I'm still panicking. Oh, I got to tell myself, and then I've got to like breathe or do whatever the technique you do to calm your body down.
Yeah.
Right.
And generally, what it is just, okay, give myself a chance to stall for a little while. But while I'm stalling, recognize that the reason I'm stalling is because of this panic thing that I feel, my mental, and I think it is a physical thing too, because I get physical symptoms of panic.
Yeah. Can I interject something?
Yeah.
Because I think, when you say stalling, I think that's what you used to do. But when I think of you getting a text and stalling, what I see with you is you are very thoughtful. So you're not going to quickly respond to something.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to take a minute. So it feels like it's still the same thing. It's the same action. I'm waiting, but it's a different, we're naming it different because you're starting to let go of the panic and you're going, no, I can do this. But I wanted, because me, I open my mouth and talk. You think before you talk. You think before you text. And so maybe a reframing of that is, oh, I've got this, but I need a minute. Like I deserve a minute.
That has actually described it very well, because I need to take time generally when I respond. I don't just blurt stuff out necessarily.
No, that's one thing I love about you. You and I are so opposite in a lot of ways, and I respect that because sometimes I text back so fast that I miss the whole thing. And then I have anxiety because I'm like, oh, that wasn't even what they were saying. Like, I love it that you take a minute to think about it. Is this what they're really saying? Is this, because it is easy to read things wrong, especially when we're reading and not hearing.
Well, and also to react.
Yeah.
And that's my issue, I think, was I'm afraid of just reacting, because often when I do have a reaction, it's not necessarily, it doesn't match the context. Often my reaction is an overreaction, and then I have to wait and say, okay, I'm overreacting. That doesn't fit the context here. So, but yeah, I think I'm getting better, and the realization helped me a lot, but it's taking work.
It is, and it's all the opportunities, like having an opportunity to look at, okay, look, I want to, I really want to be retired. I want to work from home. How do I make this work? And to recognize I'm sabotaging somehow myself, and it's not making sense. And so how do we, that's why I like, it's called belief coding, because you go look at the belief, and the belief is if you get money, people take it. So now I get to go in and I get to change that belief, and which takes time because we have to say it and we have to feel it. Because they'll take my money as an actual physical reaction, me almost like I'm closing up my body and going, you can't have it, And so it's that physical and that mental of saying, I'm safe, I'm good, and my money is mine. I get to do what I want. And that just takes a process and continually reminding myself of that. And that's how we decode by undoing what was done. But first, just like you said, we have to recognize it. And it's always when we recognize it, that's half the battle.
Oh,
like
at least,
that's the hardest thing, I think.
At least, yeah. And for me, the reaction is what I never recognized before, because I would have a reaction and then go immediately into stalling mode. And then I would beat myself up because it would take me so long to actually get out of the stalling mode and respond. And in the meantime, I'm just angry at myself for not responding and not knowing that there was a reason I had a hard time responding, and just beating myself up about it and saying, you're always that way. You're always, you just...
And that shows the cycle of abuse. We continue to abuse ourselves. So when nobody's doing it for us, maybe we had a mean person in our life telling us bad things, they're gone. Now we're doing it to ourselves. And it's recognizing that and going, oh, I don't always do that. Oh, guess what? I need time and I deserve time. I'm not stalling. I'm not ignoring people. It's just like reframing and putting it, because we are responsible, good adults. And look how far we've come. Look at all the amazing things we've done, even with our setbacks.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah. It's actually, I find it interesting now how much, when Charnel's talking about the podcast with people that have never heard of it or didn't know I was doing it, and how much I find great pride in what I'm doing, but I'm also not the one that's going to bring it up generally because I'm afraid to be proud.
Oh.
And that's another thing that I'm realizing, is that I think part of that being painfully shy was also being embarrassed about myself
Oh, that's pretty
and
interesting.
not feeling pride in what I did because I always felt like I was a failure. I always
Mm.
felt like I was doomed and a failure. And so actually being successful at something was really hard for me to admit.
Wow.
And so when Charnel's kind of talking about all the stuff I'm doing and being really, I get embarrassed.
Mm.
I feel like I don't deserve it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's been very eye-opening, paying more attention to, and the whole process has been amazing because when I first started this, it wasn't for me. It was to help others. And the fact that it is helping others makes me feel really good, but I still don't feel like it's about me, and I don't feel like it should be about me. It should be about helping others, but it has changed my life in so many ways and helped me in so many ways.
Something I see in the recovery world is when they begin to come out and get well, there's this big differentiation between pride and arrogance. And so I think that there's kind of a fine line where pride feels like arrogance, like, oh, you think
Hmm.
you're all that. And so, one of the things with the ladies I work with, when someone would compliment them, and of course they want to downplay it, I just go, say thank you, or I receive that. I've made you say that in my class before. I receive that. And it's a process of doing that and hearing it on a different level because there's that, I think, that coding of childhood of arrogance. Don't think you're such hot stuff, or don't think you're, that's true for me anyways. You don't think you're pretty. Don't think you're, and so to turn that around and to be like, yeah, I am helping people. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, it's been a process, and I really like the fact that it has changed and it has gotten better, but I also recognize it's still a work in progress, and it's not always easy.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the fact that it is changing. And I like the fact that at our age, after
Mm-hmm.
so much work that we've done, that there's still progress. There's still things to improve on. There's still meaning out there. We still have a purpose that
Yeah.
we can work towards.
I think about Dr. Caroline Leaf, Your Mind Can Change Your Brain, and how if we get our brain stagnant, we're more likely to get Alzheimer's or one of those things. But we are in this situation where we are learning, like, look at all the things you're learning on the computer, and now I'm going to teach you about YouTube. You're like,
Yeah.
all the things that when we continue to learn, we keep our brain activated, and it's good. And Kevin, this is the one thing that you really imposed on me was about telling the story. And I've always understood the importance of story. I mean, one thing, we live in Seattle, we had a famous baseball announcer, Dave Niehaus, and the
Hmm.
reason he was so good is he made a baseball game a story. And to this day, I'd rather listen to baseball than
Yeah.
watch. But you have always pushed on the story, and I have always been pushing others to tell their story. But what I'm realizing is when we share these things, so for me to share like I'm holding all this stuff in my body was kind of embarrassing for me because I feel like at my age I should know better. But again,
Hmm.
it's those little things. It's not necessarily the whole story, but an aspect of the story, something, sometimes someone believed us or someone didn't believe us, but how important it is. And we can't learn if we're not putting it out there, we're not talking about it, and we're not exploring it.
Yeah, even this part of our story, this growth that we're going through as we're doing this podcast, I never expected for the podcast to be part of my process, to tell you the truth. I thought I was going to be talking about the process I went through and hopefully sharing others' stories and helping them with their story and to enable them to share their story. But I never realized doing this podcast was going to be part of my process and learning about myself. And I like to say that survivors, when they go through and work on themselves, they become more self-aware and more healthy in that awareness than most people because they do spend the time to learn about themselves, to learn the things that have been holding themselves back, to learn how to grow. And I think part of it is it's a lifelong growing process. And I didn't realize that until I started the podcast, was that it was a lifelong. I thought I'd kind of plateaued, to tell you the truth. And I thought, okay, well, I've gotten to this point and I want to share what I've gotten to because I've gotten to a point that feels really healthy. But what I realized was there was still a lot more to grow.
Yeah.
And I think that's been the most beneficial part of this podcast for me, was learning I'm still growing. I'm still progressing. I still have a purpose.
Mm-hmm. And we get to explore, and that's really beautiful. And it doesn't have to be all doom and gloom in the story,
Yeah.
but that there's hope. I mean, I keep coming back to that, even when I listen to, like, we've been listening to the Jim Clemente and the Ohio State thing, and there was a survivor on this week, and he didn't sound like, oh, I'm a survivor. He sounded like a really nice, normal guy that went through something, and it was hard for him to talk about it, but good for him for coming on and saying the things that happen, because it's those things that we don't really understand. When you think about children being abused, they don't know that they're supposed to say no. They don't know that this doctor's appointment is inappropriate. They don't know these kind of things, and so then they take it on themselves. And so by people speaking out and talking about this, it gives so much more freedom to people that may have got them feel like, I got myself in a situation and it's all my fault because I didn't say no, or I didn't punch him, or I didn't, and again, it's like, the more we share, the more we tell our tale and our story, the more people will be able to go, oh, that's me, that happened to me, I'm not alone.
Yeah, and I think that's also important, is recognizing that it doesn't just stop at telling your story. And it doesn't just stop at going to therapy and getting help. And it doesn't just stop at helping others. It's this continual growth of learning about yourself, learning what our body holds inside it that we weren't aware of, learning, those tapes, we talked about the chatter, and that was a big one for me, because I had a lot of chatter in my head at times, and recognizing that chatter is important to pay attention to. That's also helps to learn how to maintain that chatter so it's not overwhelming. All these things that we're learning as we go, as we explore what happens when you address abuse.
Yeah. And that there's so many things we don't know. I mean, think about when we first were able to share something we didn't know. I remember my counselor would say to me, Lori, did you know? Like, I would tell her something had happened, and she would tell me, this is what abusers do. And I would be like, what? I didn't know that. And as awful as it was, it made me realize, oh, this is their MO, or this is the way I just read this terrible book by Lisa Jewell. I love her. It's called Don't Let Him In, and it was about a narcissist man. And what I kept thinking as I was reading it, I would be one of those women, because I would always believe. But now, because of all the work I've done, I might believe, but I think I would really pay attention to red flags.
Yeah.
I think I know that they can fool doctors and lawyers and judges. I know that they're good at that. But I also think that I would recognize red flags, because I've also been protecting myself from relationships, because I don't want to be duped. I don't want to be dumb. I don't want to be taken advantage of. I don't want to be embarrassed or hurt, or, get with someone who, not for my money, but, like in my past. And so, again, it's those protections that we have in place that are just solid around us. And when we recognize them and we can let go of them, we can be free to do what we want instead of doing it out of self-protection.
Well, and Charnel was talking today about those Ohio State and what was happening there. And her brother-in-law was talking about how he had a hard time believing that actually could happen. And because, these are men that were being abused. And he's like, I can't believe that a man would allow that to happen. And there's that word, allow that to happen.
Wow.
And it's almost like blaming the victim right there.
Yeah.
And
do you know what gave them the courage to come forward?
No.
Do you know what gave those Ohio men the courage to come forward? Was the Larry Vassar, those women coming up and saying, like, he was doing this in front of our parents, and all of a sudden they were like, wait a minute. So it gave them the premise of, I knew that wasn't right. And so then they were able to because somebody else told their story, gave them the courage to tell their story. But when you say that you saw my face. I'm shocked, but also, that's why, I remember Nathan saying, nobody wants to make a movie about this. No one wants to believe this.
Yeah, and it's so hard for men because of that. Why did you allow that to
Yeah.
happen?
Oh,
Why didn't you fight back? Why didn't you do something? And there's this disbelief that still lingers. And that's part of the stigma of being a male survivor is people don't believe that it could happen.
yeah.
And so they
Yeah.
become basically not necessarily blamed, but doubted.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And
Or blamed, doubted, and shamed
yeah.
because now it's their fault.
Yeah, or how did you let this happen?
Yeah.
Is what I
And
kind of got out of it was how could
yeah.
you let that happen? If you're a man, how could you let that happen?
Yeah. And
And
that's why they
and
didn't tell.
yeah, and so these are the things that I think are so important to
It
talk
is.
about is yes, this still happens. And yes, it's not just, helpless children.
No.
There's so many people.
You think of a young man, 17, 18 years old, he gets a scholarship to a
Hmm.
college, the Ohio State, not
Yeah,
Ohio State, the Ohio State. And he goes in for his first exam, and the doctor just says, drop your drawers,
yeah.
or says, turn off the light. How's the kid supposed to know? Probably
Hmm.
his mom or dad was with him in appointments up until then, with his pediatrician. How is he supposed to know that this isn't just the way it is, even though it's uncomfortable? So now he's got this weighing on him. And I think it's so horrid that that man, that doctor could
Hmm.
be so just blatant. And he would go in the hot tub with him naked. And so he was always crossing the line, just inappropriate enough for everyone to be like confused.
Yeah, but they didn't know if it was their right to question it or
Yeah.
their place to question it because this is a person who's basically in authority and they're new to this, so to speak. And so who are they to question, even
Yeah.
though
They
they
don't want to lose
feel
their
like it's,
scholarship.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, not only are we learning about ourselves during this
Yeah.
process, we're learning how prevalent and how difficult it is for survivors to talk about. And I think one of the great gifts for me has been being able to talk about it. It's not always easy, it's not always fun, but to be able to talk about this
Mm-hmm.
and basically destroy these myths, destroy the stigma
Mm-hmm.
that's out there, because that's how we get the awareness of the issue is by
Right.
destroying all the myths and the stigma behind it. And it doesn't just happen to children, it happens to teenagers, it happens to adults.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't just happen in people who are poor or people who are living in disadvantaged situations. It's happening everywhere to people of
Yeah.
any kind of status. It's
Yeah.
just, there's no discrimination when it comes to abuse. I think
Yeah.
that's the most important thing to recognize is abuse doesn't discriminate.
No. And, I know that we got to wrap this up, but something that, Mike, our friend Mike Chapman has been following the Menendez brothers. And that's the same thing that they got so much disbelief that couldn't happen. And it wasn't until the music group that their dad was managing came out and said that he'd been grooming. He kept moving them through. As soon as they get to a certain age, he'd put them out and bring in a new one in this
Yeah.
in this music group. And it's like it happens, and my heart goes out to the Menendez brothers, because I mean what they did was horrendous, but they also really didn't believe they had an out.
No,
Their
they
dad
didn't.
told them he made them quit college. They did not think that there was any out.
No,
And
they felt trapped.
yeah. And it's heartbreaking. And I hope that, I know people around me, really educated people, still think they're guilty and that they're making
Hmm.
all this up. And it's heartbreaking. But if we can become more aware and know that this happens and know, I mean,
Yeah.
camps, I mean, it's just crazy where
Yeah.
people are getting abused.
Yeah.
Churches, we follow the preacher boys, and he's got all this stuff going on in different Baptist churches in the Midwest.
Mm.
Use and churches covering it up. And so it happens, and the sooner we admit and believe that it happens, the sooner we're going to be able to make a dent in it.
Yeah, and it all starts with awareness.
Yep.
But
Wow, that was a powerful.
well, on that note, let's pray. So that's it for today.
We are going to have a prayer time if you want to stick with us. If not, we believe in you.
We want to hear from you. We want to hear your stories.
If you like this podcast, please rate and review, because that's how other people can find us. And we really want to spread this message.
Father, I thank you for all your blessings, and especially that you want the awareness of what is happening. You want people to be aware and to have empathy for people who are being suffering, people who have been abused. You have empathy towards them. You care about them. You want them to heal. You want them to get better. And I just pray that we can help others to have empathy, to be educated about this. I just pray that we would be able to help others to acknowledge this issue and be aware of it and want to do something about it, and mostly just care for those and understand those who have been abused and are struggling. Lord, and I just pray that if anyone is listening that is struggling, that they would find their tribe, their people that understand them, that care about them, and want to encourage them. And Lord, I just pray for your hope in their lives, Lord. In your name I pray.
And Father, I just pray for all the survivors of the Ohio State, Lord, that you will just work in their lives, work in their hearts, help them to find the help they need, the support they need as they move forward with this. And Lord, there's such a scariness when we realize, wow, this happened to me. How is this my life? But then to be able to share a story, to know it wasn't just us, that we're not alone, and that there is support and help. And going forward with our story, helping other people, knowing that so many people suffer in silence. And Father, if we can make a dent in that, then that's what we want to do, that people will know they're not alone and know there is support and there is help, and that speaking the words, telling your story is the first start. In your Son's holy name, amen.
Amen.